Now, with mounting evidence connecting the virus to China's Wuhan Institute of Virology, House Republicans say it's time for House Democrats to join their investigation. With me now is one of the House Republicans who joined this call, Congressman Don Bacon, who represents Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District. He also serves on the House Armed Services Committee. Representative Bacon, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thank you. It's really good to be with you. I appreciate your time today.
Well, we appreciate you joining us, and you have been tracking all of this for us. First, I want to talk a little bit about China and this investigation, this letter that you sent to Speaker Pelosi. What kind of a response are you getting from calls to fully investigate the origin of the virus?
I think the majority surely want to get to the bottom of this. You know, about a year ago, I was briefed on what we knew on the origins of the virus, and this is what I was told. That the lab was actually working and studying the virus. So they had the virus in the lab. And secondly, that the Wuhan laboratory failed the safety protocols in their last inspection. And so it stands to reason that it's very possible, or at least plausible, that the virus had an accidental outbreak. Now, we don't know that yet. But then since then, you know, the media and Democrats, or the Democratic leadership anyway, diminished that as a theory. But I was told that at the very beginning of this, that this was possible because the lab had the virus and they had bad safety protocols. So it was likely. So I think the Americans, I think the whole world wants to know, was this an accidental outbreak out of the laboratory? 600,000 Americans died. We deserve to get the answers.
There are reports that the Chinese government plans not to cooperate with any investigation into the origins of the virus. What's your response to that?
It's not surprising. We have to remember that we've had journalists disappear that were reporting out of this in China. We had doctors arrested who were talking too freely. This is a communist dictatorship. There's no rule of law. They can arrest who they want. They can silence who they want. And they are very apt to not want to have any of this data come out. So I think they're going to stonewall. They've stonewalled since December of 2019, right? So it's very likely they're going to continue doing that and trying to silence any sources of information on this.
Domestically, do you feel like there is general agreement that we can and should try to get to the bottom of this?
Yes, I think it's an overwhelming majority. I think would be a bipartisan thing that would support. So I think only a very small minority would push back on this. America deserves answers. The 600,000 families of people who died from this virus deserve answers. And frankly, the world deserves an answer.
Now, I think everybody watching this will agree with that. We do want answers. What do you make of the fact that the theory that this had actually come from a lab in Wuhan had been ridiculed in many circles is now becoming accepted in some of those same circles? Is that purely political, or has the science just changed?
I think it was mainly political. You have major Main Street, or the national media, I'll say, did ridicule this. It was fact checked as being, as quote, proven false, which we know it wasn't. And I think on the political end of it, folks thought that this was maybe helping President Trump during the campaign if this theory was true. And frankly, on the Democratic leadership and the national media were so opposed to the president that they didn't want this to be a factor in the election. So I think this is more than not politically motivated on why it was ridiculed. When after all, I was briefed at the very beginning that the laboratory was working on this virus and they had terrible safety protocols. And so it was very plausible that this could have been an accidental outbreak. And what they also did, these fact checkers and the national media, Democratic leadership, they put words in people's mouth. They put words in like Senator Cotton's mouth saying it was biological warfare. He never said that. It was always assumed an accidental outbreak, not an intentional biological attack by China, but they put words in people's mouth and then tried. It was a straw man argument most often that was being used, and so it's surely it was done for political reasons. That's my assessment.
Now, I want to change subjects with you for a moment and go to Afghanistan. We know that President Biden has said that he wants to withdraw all the troops from Afghanistan. He actually gave the date of September 11th to do that. He made a statement today that I want to play and then give you a chance to respond to that.
Went to Afghanistan with a clear purpose to get the people who attacked us on 9/11 and to prevent al-Qaeda from using Afghanistan as a base from which to attack America in the future. We achieved that purpose. You achieved that purpose.
Do you agree with his assessment that what we went to Afghanistan to do has been accomplished, therefore it's time to withdraw?
It has, but we could lose those gains in about a year or 2 years. And so, yes, we kicked al-Qaeda out of Afghanistan, or at least and any al-Qaeda still there. They're underground, they're hiding. The Taliban is still a big threat, though, in Afghanistan. And if we pull out, like President Biden is saying, it is very likely that within a year or 2 years, the Taliban could be in the capital of Kabul, and they will provide safe haven once again to al-Qaeda. And that's what happened in 2001, leading up to 9/11. Al-Qaeda had safe haven in Afghanistan. So we have accomplished our goals, but if we pull out, like President Biden, we could lose those goals and lose what we fought for. It is my view, and I would say the majority of the Republicans I work with, and many of the Democrats too, by the way, that we should have a minimal presence in Afghanistan, not a major presence, not the presence of 100,000 troops like we used to have, but of us, the smallest presence possible to help the regime in Afghanistan, the government of Afghanistan, hold power. Our main goal is to not let the Taliban come back. That should be our goal. That should be in our strategic interest to ensure that does not happen.
And I think it's an interesting question as we move into Memorial Day because of those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in Afghanistan as well as other parts of the Middle East to ensure our security, to prevent the Taliban from having a base from which to operate there in Afghanistan, because we know what they can do. We are also hearing reports of thousands of families who are fleeing and being unsettled because of new skirmishes in Afghanistan. Do you think there's any chance that would cause the new violence in Afghanistan cause the Biden administration to reassess their current plan?
I hope it does, but they seem like their mind is made. And by the way, it was a shame to make 9/11 the date to pull out your troops out of Afghanistan. Tying the withdrawal out of Afghanistan, really a retreat, a precipitous retreat out of Afghanistan, to tie it to the date of 9/11, where we lost roughly 3,000 American lives. I thought that was a mistake in messaging and just a lack of wisdom in doing that. I hope that President Biden will realize that having a minimal presence of troops in Afghanistan will preserve our strategic interests, and in the end will be cheaper than pulling out all of our forces and then a year or two later having to go back in with force to kick the Taliban out of Kabul because they're doing terrorist attacks or enabling al-Qaeda to attack us. That will cost more money and more blood to go back in and root them out if they retake the country of Afghanistan. I'd rather have the small presence. I think it's cheaper and more affordable option in the long run.
I'm going to change the subject on you one more time. You have recently been to the border. Earlier this year, we saw the headlines. We saw the caravans at the border. We heard record numbers of people coming into the border once the border wall construction was stopped. And apparently the message was sent that they were welcome to come into the country, and the Biden administration did not really intend to do anything about that. What's the latest news based on your time there at the border?
We've been averaging about 175,000 people coming across illegally in the month of March and the month of April. So approximately 350,000. The worst thing that the Biden administration did is they come in on January 20th and immediately tell the world that we will now accept unaccompanied children. President Trump had said we would not, and so they didn't send their unaccompanied children. That got cut down to very small numbers. But when you announce that you're going to take unaccompanied children, within 2 months we had 60,000 children coming here, and they're paying human traffickers between $5,000 and $10,000 a piece, and they're abusing the children. Just today we saw a report of a 9-year-old girl that was gang raped repeatedly by multiple gangs, who was helping out the human traffickers, or was with the human traffickers. We see children being on top of a 15-foot fence, and they're dropping them 15 feet from the top of the border wall. These kids are being abused. It's creating trauma, and it's because we said we would take these unaccompanied children. And so it was a mistake in policy. I think Joe Biden saw this, and his team saw this as a humane way to deal with children, to accept them. But what it did is it actually created a situation where more inhumanity is being done. So inhumanity has now been increased in this situation. And so also he stopped doing the border wall. We have a 14-mile gap in El Paso, and that's where most of the folks are crossing illegally today are. We have holes in the old fence. And so when you put it all together, it's a failed policy, and the American people know it. Right now, the administration is being rated the lowest in all areas in securing the border and immigration, and this is why.
Congressman Bacon, we greatly appreciate your time and your attention to this matter, and we look forward to having you back again. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.